Toltec Mounds, Little Rock, Arkansas. You know, there's so many places around the world that evoke such feelings of mystery and mysticism that everyone wants to see. Oh, I want to see Machu Picchu. I want to see the Sphinx. I want to see the Mayan ruins. I want to see Stonehenge. And the reason why we have so many sites here on North American soil that should and do evoke those feelings, but are not in the public eye or consciousness, well, the name of Toltec Mounds really speaks to that, because you see, the American settlers just outright had just complete disdain for the Native Americans, and they thought of them as savages, and they just could not acknowledge that they built these sites. So they said, oh, it must have been the Toltecs, who were a Mexican civilization that came after the Maya and occupied sites like Chichen Itza. Like, they would not acknowledge that these sites were of Native American origin. So it's no surprise that these places become forgotten, and just outright disrespect for the Native American is ingrained in American culture.
Toltec Mounds was built and maintained by a people we call the Plum Bayou culture. They were active from 650 AD to 1050 AD. Little is known of the Plum Bayou culture. Well, little is known by me because I'm no academic. If I hung out with academics and archaeologists, I might know more, but my time is spent with prostitutes, strippers, and sponge fishermen. Do you know how much a sponge fisherman's eyes glaze over when you talk about ancient Native American burial grounds? I'm hanging out with all the wrong people. I haven't learned much about mounds, but I do know it's no touchy-touchy during a lap dance, and that a sponge is not a viable replacement for birth control, and that's about it. But also, little is known of the Plum Bayou people because most of their mound sites and settlements have been destroyed by modern-day farming. I mean, take a look at these proud folks standing atop the remnants of a massive Mississippian mound as they gradually reduced it to dust. Good job, everybody. Another piece of history erased. Some Plum Bayou pottery and tools have been recovered, but cultural artifacts are scant. This really interesting stone effigy here of an owl was discovered at Toltec Mounds, and because the Plum Bayou sites were on floodplains and riverbanks and without any naturally occurring stone in the area, this effigy and all other stone tools were crafted from stone they acquired by trade. I've said this in every episode I've made so far, but I'll say it again. Native American trade networks were vast and complex. Just like you can get a pull-up bar that you'll never use, Muffin Top, from an Amazon warehouse in California shipped directly to your lean-to in Slob Creek, Kentucky, so were the Plum Bayou and all peoples of the time very much able to get trade goods, all things considered, fairly easily. Trade routes covered all of the Americas. The area we call Canada, the area we call the United States, and the area we call Mexico today. And the mica and the copper and the stone and the shells and the feathers and everything else they regularly shipped all over the nation served a much higher purpose than your embroidered designer hand towels that say I'm a fan of the mallard. What is interesting about Plum Bayou is their rejection of outside cultures and trends. The dominant culture of the time was the Mississippian culture, which rose to prominence out of the mighty city of Cahokia. Cahokia's wealth, their influence on trade and politics, and their might led to many peoples all over the Americas gradually being absorbed into the Mississippian way of life, adopting their technology, their agricultural method, and their spiritual practice. Kind of like how you're into every endless update in the shit cycle of style and music and politics and opinion that is willingly crammed down your dilated throat in every changing season of the consumerist hamster wheel of life. But Plum Bayou, for some reason or another, wanted nothing to do with the Mississippians. When the Mississippians came into power and prominence and their influence began to take hold in the surrounding communities, the Plum Bayou didn't follow along with their neighbors and change with the times. They instead chose to abandon sites like the Toltec Mounds rather than convert them into Mississippian ceremonial centers. After abandoned, some Native Americans kept settlements at or near Toltec, but no ceremony was practiced, no new mounds were built, and the Plum Bayou practice and way of life was eventually forgotten. We can find no link from the Plum Bayou to any modern-day tribes or to the peoples the European settlers conquered and slaughtered during colonization.
And what these sites were is awesome. And in the case of this one, only 3 structures remain out of 18 that were known to be here. And this was a gathering place, and you can feel it. My best comparison is a fairgrounds. This was a ceremonial center again. This place wasn't Mississippian. This kind of came just before the Mississippian area. And I should say something to that too. It's like, it's really hard to keep track of all this stuff. I mean, I read a couple books. I've read the Wikipedia articles. I've read the websites around about these spaces, and I've read the materials here, and all of it's different because the information's constantly changing. Archaeological evidence, new digs, or just new perceptions on what all these places are is constantly changing. It's very hard to find accurate information, so everything I'm saying is not accurate. But anyway, this was a place just before the Mississippians, and at the end of that Hopewell-Adena period, probably about 600, 300 AD, and it was a ceremonial center. Religious leaders, important people lived here, and all the many surrounding cultures would come here a couple times a year for a ceremony. And the best comparison I can think of is a state fair. I mean, just imagine this place filled with all sorts of different and diverse people bringing their wares, food stands, caricature booths, snow cones. I mean, it must have been fantastic. It must have been a really great time to be here.